Looking into the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Evan, why is the FBI so interested in Jared Kushner?
Well, Don, as we know, covering this story now for a few months, we know that there are many tentacles of this investigation, this FBI investigation in particular, and increasingly those tentacles lead to Jared Kushner. In particular, one of those tentacles has to do with the FBI's interest in whether or not the Russians, in what they were trying to do in meddling with the election, if they were able to in some way take a benefit from the data operation, a very well-prized operation that the Trump campaign used to win in November, whether or not they were able to piggyback on that, whether either by unwitting help from somebody inside the campaign or whether they just spied on it, and whether or not they were able to use that to be able to target voters in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, some of the places where the president ended up having the margin of victory and being able to push news, information that was negative towards Hillary Clinton and positive towards Donald Trump. We should add that none of this indicates that there's any allegation of wrongdoing by Jared Kushner. As a matter of fact, the FBI has not reached out to him. We don't know that he's a target or is a target of this investigation. As a matter of fact, everything indicates that he is not. There's also some interest, Don, in his role in his role with Michael Flynn, who was the fired national security advisor. As you know, Michael Flynn was able to had meetings, multiple meetings, with the Russian ambassador here in Washington, as well as Kushner's own involvement with his own meetings with Russia. So all of that, all of those roads, so to speak, lead back to Jared Kushner.
Gloria Borger, this is Jared Kushner's attorney responding in a statement saying Mr. Kushner previously volunteered to share with Congress what he knows about these meetings. He will do the same if he is contacted in connection with any other inquiry. How does this development complicate things for the White House right now?
Well, look, it's not welcome news, but none of this is welcome news. I also don't think it really comes as any great surprise. We know that Jared Kushner portrayed himself and was, during the transition, the man to see when it came to foreign policy. I think, however, his meeting, not necessarily with Kislyak, because you meet with ambassadors, you meet with diplomats. I'm sure he met with diplomats from Saudi Arabia as well as from Russia, but the Sergei Gorkov meeting is the one I think that raises eyebrows because, of course, this is somebody who is the head of VEB Bank, which is tied to Putin. And if you just did a little Google search on it, you would know immediately that this was probably not a person you wanted to meet with, even if you wanted to establish a back channel to Putin, which is what Kushner's people say, because this guy, his bank was being sanctioned by the federal government here. So either he was naive or inexperienced or something else. And I think those are questions that the FBI really wants to get answers to.
David Chalian, this isn't someone who has been fired like Michael Flynn or Paul Manafort or someone the White House is saying was sort of ancillary or irrelevant like Carter Page. This is the president's top advisor and his son-in-law. How does the White House, or how can they spin it? I'm sure they'll try.
Yeah, we'll look to see what their reaction is to this as the hours go forward. But you are right. This is a different phase of this investigation now because it is inside the White House. It's inside the Oval Office, basically, both in the family circle and the closest advisor. So there is no more distancing. There is no more Sean Spicer from the podium trying to say Paul Manafort had nothing to do with the campaign and Donald Trump barely couldn't even recognize Carter Page in a lineup. None of that really flew then, and now with Kushner, it's going to be impossible to do that. The other thing, Don, that we have to watch out for here is this becomes a much bigger distraction now, much bigger. It was already a big distraction. But when the top advisor to the president is in and out of meetings all day long on various issues, in between shuttling calls with his lawyers about dealing with this, it is impossible for this not to seep in as a pretty substantial distraction in the day-to-day processing of the work in the West Wing.
Well, and David,
I've got to take a break, and I'm